Hi, and welcome again for ISTQB Foundation course, Chapter 1, Topic 1.4. So, in this video, we will see topic 4th of Unit 1. So, Unit 1 is Fundamentals of Testing, and we will see the test process topic in this video. So, let's start. So, what is the fundamental test process? The fundamental test process comprises of various phases, and these phases are test planning and control, test analysis and design, test implementation and execution, evaluating the exit criteria and reporting, and test closure activities. So these are the group of fundamental processes, and we will try to analyze all these processes one by one with the help of example. So let's start with the first phase, which is test planning and control. And let us assume as a specification, we have a calculator having two input boxes, and in these two input boxes, we have to provide any digit, and then we click on submit button and we will get the sum. So I am keeping it very simple for the purpose of understanding. So this is our calculator, and some specifications are given to us. So let's see how we can plan the test process for this calculator. So in the test planning, there are various phases. We have to define the scope, we have to define the schedule, we have to define the resources, potential risks, environment, etc. All this information should be provided. So let's come see what's under scope. Scope is what needs to be tested, what needs not to be tested. So I'm assuming from the requirements, we only need to test the addition operation between the two digits. So it is mentioned in the requirement. Let's assume that. So we will write in the scope, addition of the two digits is under our scope, and what is out of scope, multiplication, division are not into the scope. So in this way, during the planning phase, we can define the scope. We can also define the exit criteria for testing. Exit criteria means if we have 100 test cases, so at least how many test cases must be executed to stop the testing. So I can define my exit criteria is 75 or 80% of the test cases needs to be executed, and once this 80% level is achieved, I can exit the test. So this is the way we plan the things. So in the same way, we can define the schedule. Schedule means on which date we are going to test all these things. Then we resource who are going to participate in the testing process. What are the potential risks? These risks can be human resource risk or technical risk, whatever we can mention here. And we can also specify the environment. We have to do this testing either on mobile or on web or whatever. So all these things are mentioned under test planning and control. So this is all about the first phase. Let's go to the second phase. So in the second phase, we also have the same specification. So we have an app which is a calculator, and this app is having two text boxes where we have to enter the digit, and then we have to click on submit button, and then we will get the sum of these two digits. So during the test analysis and design phase, what we have to do? We have to review the requirements, architecture of the application. So what do you mean by reviewing the requirements? We will review the requirements by our own. So we will ask some questions from our own. So requirement says we have to enter something and we will get the plus operation of these two digits. What will happen if these digits are comprises of 4 places? So probably we will get the error message. Is this error message is specified in the requirements or not? If not, then we will ask question to the product owner. Or what will happen if I will leave one box blank and then click submit button? Probably I will again get an error message, but is this error message is documented somewhere in the requirements? What this error message will look like? If this is not specified, then we will go to the product owner or the business owner and ask these questions. In the same way, in test analysis and design phase, we have to prepare some test cases. I mean to say the positive and the negative test cases. What can be the positive test cases? Positive test case can be a scenario. For example, I am putting 23 in one text box, 24 in another text box, and I am getting 47. This can be a positive scenario. What can be the negative test case? I am putting something in a float in decimals, and then I am trying to get this output. So what will be the output? It will be an error message. So negative test case is something which is not specified explicitly in the requirements documentation, or which is not as simple as we see. Adding the digits is something, we can just put 2 digits and see the addition. Positive test case, and negative can be what will happen if I will leave one text box blank. So these kind of test cases are negative test cases. Again, we have to specify some test data, what kind of test data we are going to provide. We have to decide in this phase, and we have to prepare the traceability matrix. Now traceability matrix is an independent topic which we are going to see in the next slide. So what the traceability matrix is, I am taking the same example where I will put 2 digits and get the sum, and for this we have to prepare traceability matrix. So traceability matrix is nothing as it's just a combination of the requirements with the test case ID. So for example, for this app I am having first requirement, and this requirement is app will accept only integers with 2 places as an input of text boxes. For this corresponding requirement, I will write a corresponding test case. I will write steps are enter digit x as 10, enter digit y as 20, and expected is result will be 30. So when test cases are matched with the requirements, then this table is known as traceability matrix. So in other words, traceability matrix ensures that every requirement is mapped with the test cases, and there is no requirement which is not matched or not attended. So it's a kind of a way by which we have to ensure that from requirement point of view, we are 100% at our place. We are giving 100%. We have covered all the requirements. So that is very important thing for test analysis and design phase. Now come to the third phase, which is test implementation and execution. So as name says, whatever we have designed as test cases, we have to execute all those things in this phase. So we have to do the execution of the test cases, and mostly this execution is defined on priority basis. So high priority test cases should be executed first, and then we have to keep log of all the testing activities. So how many test cases are passed, how many test cases are failed, all those small things should be logged. If we are finding any discrepancy, then we have to defect a log. So for example, if I am putting 22 in the first digit box and again 22 in digit y box, and I am getting 80, it's a defect, like, because it's not the expected. Ideally we have to go 22 plus 22, 44. So we have to log the defects, and then we have to do some regression testing and the retesting and defect verification also. So defect verification is simple. Once the defect is fixed, it is again coming to the tester that he has to verify that whether the defect is fixed or not. That's a defect verification. And retesting and regression are a bit of confusion terms, so we will see more about them in the next slide. So let's take an example where I am having a where I am having a login screen where I have to put the username, password, login, and there are the forget password registration links as well. So in this application we have 3 modules. The module 1 is the login module, second one is registration module, and module third is forget password module. And suppose these modules are interlinked with each other, they are dependent with each other, their code is completely independent with each other, and during the testing we find a bug which says username and password text boxes, these are not aligned. This is a bug, right? And suppose if this bug is fixed, then in the retesting, what we have to do in the retesting, retesting is kind of a defect verification. So this bug will again come to the tester, and tester needs to verify it whether this time the text boxes are properly aligned or not. So that's the purpose of retesting. Then what's regression? Regression is if lot of bugs are fixed, then it might be a chance a bug fixed in a module 1 can impact module 2 and module 3, right? So in regression, we are executing some common test cases, some minimum set of test cases to verify, to ensure that any bug which is fixed in particular module has not impacted the other modules. So regression is usually done when there is a fix of 20, 40, 50, 60 bugs, and at the end they say you have to do the regression. So we will execute a set of some test cases, high priority test cases, high severity test cases, in order to determine that everything is working fine and every module is, intact with each other, and there are not any integration bug or some other bugs. So that's the impression of regression testing. So retesting is done after one bug is fixed, and regression testing is done when lot of bugs are fixed, and usually which is, the end of the cycle, when lot of bugs are fixed, lot of things are done by the developer, and then finally we have to carry out the regression. Now the fourth phase is determining the exit criteria and reporting. So I already told you during the first phase where we are planning the things, we are also defining the exit criteria. And in this phase, we will determine whether our exit criteria is achieved or not. So for example, my exit criteria can be 70% coverage of the test cases needs to be done. So in this phase, I will see whether I have achieved 70% of the coverage or not. If I have not achieved 70% of the coverage, then probably I have to define if more tests are needed, then I have to add some more tests in the exit criteria. So this step is also for this phase. And finally, if the exit criteria is achieved, I have to notify my stakeholders that the exit criteria have been achieved. So that's about determining the exit criteria and reporting phase. And finally, the test closure. So test closure is very simple, where we have to make some reports, where we have to pass the testware to the maintenance team. We have to make some documentation. We have to make some demo in terms of we have to demo the functional feature or functionality to the stakeholders that everything is working as expected. Retrospectives is, we have one meeting. In this meeting, we will see what went good, what went wrong, and what needs to be taken care as an improvement step. And finally, we have to provide the documentation for acceptance tests. In some organization, we have alpha test and beta test, so we have to provide the documentation for the same. So for this specific chapter, we can assume, there can be some questions, and most of the questions are, they will provide you a name of an activity, and you have to determine from which phase this activity will belong. Going forward in next chapters, when we will talk about the models and other things, we will explain these phases, we will learn about these phases in more elaborative way. So stay tuned, stay glued, and have a visit to our website teachalesson.in, where you can get sample papers, free sample papers, more videos, study materials, and guidance. Thank you very much.